Hello again guys, it's Carly from the Poetry of Nice, and today I have the next installment, if you like, in my Reselling 101 series. First things first, if you are new here, welcome. This is a channel all about reselling online. I currently sell on Poshmark, Etsy and eBay, and I do that while being a stay-at-home parent to 3 little boys, 5 and under. So this is very much a part-time job that fits in with my lifestyle right now. On this channel you're going to find everything from yard sale hauls and rummage sale hauls and things like that to what sells videos, because that really matters. And also like tips and tricks and tutorials and all kinds of other cool stuff in between. So if that sounds interesting to you, please do think about hitting that subscribe button down below, and don't forget to say hello in the comments so that I can say hi back. Okay, so if you haven't caught the rest of my Reselling 101 series yet, I will link it right here in the cards. Essentially, this is a series that is aimed towards newer resellers that are wondering what the basics of listing online really look like. So far I've covered title, description and photos when it comes to listing online, and today I'm going to be talking about taking measurements for clothing items that you may be reselling. What I will do is kind of shuffle over, and I will aim to insert photographs right here of my tape measure laid on garments as I reference them, so you can see exactly what I mean when it comes to taking those measurements and sharing them in your online listings. Okay, number one, we're going to talk about tops. So this is anything from a button down to a shirt to a blouse, whatever it may be, sweater. I do them all the same way, and I include chest measurement, waist measurement, length measurement and a sleeve measurement, as long as it isn't a short sleeve item. Chest is going to be armpit to armpit when laid flat on the floor. I take all of my measurements laid flat, not stretching them out in any way, and I will lay my tape measure, like I said, armpit all the way over to the other armpit, just straight across, no stretching, and that is the measurement that I have. So say it is 20 inches across, then I'm going to call that 40-inch chest. Quick disclaimer, this is how I do my measurements. I'm sure I don't need to say this, but some people will do this slightly differently. I would encourage you absolutely to Google it and things like that and see what all is out there, but I'm just going to share with you exactly how I include my measurements. All right, let's carry on. Okay, waist is exactly the same thing. If it's a woman's item, I'm going to look for the tapering of the waist. If it does go in ever so slightly, if it's not a boxy fit item, and again, tape measure from one side to the other, I take the amount, say that it was 18 inches, and then that becomes a 36-inch waist is what I put there. Length is going to be on the back of the garment. It's going to be from the top of the collar, like right here between the shoulder blades, that top edge, all the way straight down the back to that bottom hem. Obviously I don't do anything like doubling that because it's just one measurement. Now if it's something like a high-low item, I will sometimes put in that is the back measurement, and then I may also provide the front measurement as well, just because they're obviously going to differ for my buyer. And then sleeve length. If it is not a short sleeve item, then it goes from the seam right here. Again, you can check out the photo. The seam here at the shoulder, all the way down here wherever the cuff ends. That is how long my sleeve length is going to be, and I will often put in there as well in brackets shoulder seam to cuff, just to clarify for my buyer. Okay, let's move on to dresses. So chest and waist and length for the most part is the same. Obviously length is going to be longer for a dress. What I may also consider including for a dress, if it is a piece with a defined waist, maybe like an empire waist or something like that, it would be top of back to waist and then waist to hem, so that my buyer would be able to look at and clarify exactly where that defined waist was going to sit on them and their particular body. When it comes to pants and jeans, I take 3 measurements. I do waist, which again is laid flat. It is edge to edge, not stretching those pants or that waistband out in any way. Now, if the waistband is elastic or it does have some stretch, I will tend to put in brackets that it is elastic waist or has stretch. Then sometimes I'll put a comma and I'll say measurement taken, not stretched, because I get so many questions from people saying, is this essentially wondering if I've stretched it as far as it can go and taken the measurement? I'm not too sure, but sometimes it's a good idea to clarify that. It just pretty much depends at this point if I'm in the mood to add that sentence in, or if I would rather just like field the questions as they come. I also do inseam when it comes to pants. So that is the seam right between the legs there. You'll see the seam in the center. I take my tape measure and pop it there, and I go all the way down that inseam, the literal seam that you can see on the inside of the leg, all the way down to the bottom of the cuff, and that is my inseam. And then front rise, you'll see that right between the legs where that inseam starts, there's a part where it basically crosses over where the inseam is going, and then the seam up the front of the pants is going. I put my measuring tape right there at that little crossroads, if you like, and I stretch it up to the top of the waistband, and that is my front rise. When it comes to skirts, I do basically waist, just like I did with the pants, exactly how I described, no stretching, nothing like that. And then I do length, which is obviously the top of the waistband all the way down to the hem of the skirt. Now, I personally don't put in a hip measurement. I've just never really found it necessary. However, I will say that I feel like that's kind of a gray area. It really depends where you define the hip and where you want to measure. So if I have a buyer ask me specifically for a hip measurement, I will always provide that. But what I will do usually is provide it like in the text and also in the form of a photograph. Ideally, I really want my buyer to see exactly where I took my hip measurement from. Next, I'm going to talk about swimwear and lingerie. Now, I do take some measurements sometimes for these things. Lingerie, not so much. You have the cup size and the band size. People know their brands. I'm not too worried about it. And the same kind of goes with swim. I will often still measure the waistband for them for swim, for instance, and maybe even the front rise and the back rise, because that's often going to give them an idea of how much that like bikini bottom, for instance, is gonna cover, because that changes, right? But I will say that when it comes to vintage swimwear or vintage lingerie, I'll often do a few extra measurements. Oftentimes, vintage items are sized smaller. So a size 12 vintage is not the same as a contemporary size 12. And while I can run small in my listing, that's not really going to help my buyer as they decide whether or not to purchase an item. So what I will often add in is the band length, so edge to edge, stretched out, not stretched, but like laid out flat, edge to edge. And then I will also sometimes measure the height and the width of the cup, for instance, because again, that's going to give my buyer an idea of the kind of coverage that they can expect. When it comes to vintage swimsuits or bikini bottoms as well that are high cut, meaning that the legs are cut very, very like high up, think like Baywatch style, like hip bones revealed style, I will often measure as well the exact like length of that and just pop that in there to give my buyers the idea of how much exposure they can expect. And lastly, I'm going to talk about shoes. So I do sometimes include shoe measurements, especially if I can't find out the size, like if it's rubbed off or something like that. And sometimes just when people request it. So the length of a shoe should really be measured insole. That means inside of the shoe from the edge of the toe with a fabric tape measure all the way to the back of the sole. And usually you're going to be getting into like your 8s and things like that there. And that really matters because that's the difference between sizes, essentially. If I can't do it, like sometimes with a boot, I just know way I can get my hands in there to do that. I will do it on the outsole, like turned upside down, but I will make sure that it is defined in my listing what I have measured, insole or outsole. Same goes with the ball of the foot. That would be my width measurement, and I would put ball of foot insole, ball of foot outsole, whatever it may be, to give my buyer all of the information that I possibly can about those items. And that's it. I hope that that was useful. If you have any questions, please do pop them down below. I will do whatever I can to help you, especially if you're new. I know it can be kind of daunting trying to figure out exactly what you need to include in your listing, so hopefully this will have helped to clarify just a little bit for you. If you enjoyed this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you are new here, I would love it if you would subscribe and say hello down below so I can say hello back, and I will catch you in the next video. Bye, you guys.